There was like a period of time, like end of September, I was like, oh man, like
that had to test your mental game for you, because
totally.
like not only are you because all traders go through this. Welcome back, everyone, to Be the Trader. Today I have a very fun interview for you all. We're at Matt Monaco's place here in Austin, Texas. He was nice enough to have me come over.
Absolutely, dude.
Dude, I appreciate it, man.
Anytime.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
As we were saying before this, I can't believe it feels like we just know each other very well because we've been talking so much. But this is actually the first time we met in person, and that's
it's nuts.
It's crazy to me because you said that, and I was like, "There's no way that's true." But
yeah. It's crazy because a long time ago, take everyone back, I was actually on your show, or I was talking to you guys a long time ago, Beyond the PDT, when you had your first podcast.
Yeah, geez, man. We're approaching 3 years probably now.
Nuts, dude. And then you got on my show, and then you went on Stocks to Trade, and now you're just killing it. It's awesome, man. If you don't know who Matt is, you need to go watch his first interview with me on my show, or just go to Stocks to Trade and learn about his story as well there. But man, it's awesome, man. It's crazy. We've been talking to each other for years, and now we finally meet, and it just feels like I've already known you.
Right, totally, dude.
It's nuts.
Totally.
And what's very cool, man, is speaking of Stocks to Trade, I've seen you also trading live as well.
Yep.
And I had Bryce on the show not too long ago, literally not too long ago. And what's crazy is that I've been watching you guys for some time now. And I'm behind the curtains, but I'm watching y'all, and I'm like, man, these guys are killing it. Like, I love what y'all are doing. I love the vibe that y'all are doing. It's for real. I love it. And then when you took it up a level and you started trading live, I was like, good stuff, man. I love it. It was cool.
No, it was a good idea. We were nervous at first. For a long, long time as a trader, I'm sure a lot of people can relate. You're like superstitious about your trades, and like you're almost like, I don't really want to say I'm in it, because then like if I say it's not gonna work. And like for me at least, for a long time, like it doesn't matter who I tell. Like I'd be like, oh Bryce, I'm in this trade, and it was like instant failure, and you're just like, oh no, like come on. So then when we went live, we've been doing it like 2 weeks now. We'll keep doing it for a while. Like I was nervous, but it was crazy cool. Like people bring a lot of positive energy, and I love that. And then we're in the small cap rocket room, and people hit us up with questions, and it's a good environment. Like it's very fun.
And speaking of that, you also did a lot of recaps with Bryce about like your trading days, weeks, and I love throughout that whole time. And I brought this up with Bryce on his interview, that you guys are being so open with like the struggling parts, the great parts, the choppy parts.
Yep.
And was that hard at all for you, like to mentally go through, especially like when you're going through a choppy season? You know what I'm saying?
I want to say it's hard. It's almost like it is tough, like being transparent, because like, everyone loses, and like we talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
But then like after a while, like September, like Bryce and I were both red, and we struggled basically the whole month. And like eventually it was like, man, we keep putting out this content. We just keep saying we're losing. And that was tough.
That's trading though.
No, that's trading. It was tough. And then we flipped the script. October, we both had a great October. Blew back out of the water. We're back on track. But like there was like a period of time, like end of September, I was like, oh man, like
that had to test your mental game for you, because like not only are you because all traders go through this. Hey, we wouldn't be able to do these face-to-face interviews if it wasn't for our great sponsor, Cobra Trading. So if you could just give them a few seconds of your time, we'd really appreciate it. Cobra Trading is the broker for short sellers. If you're a short seller and you're looking for the best borrows and the best service in the market, look no further. It's why I use them every single day, and why I'm happy to have them as a sponsor. So make sure to click on the link below to learn more about Cobra Trading. And now let's get back to the show. Right? But usually it's not in front of a camera. Right? So like how'd you handle your mental game? I was so shocked that, dude, because you guys came back strong. And I was like, good stuff, man. I love that.
Well, it's almost like adds that accountability factor, and it is difficult. It's not for everyone, let me be clear. But like just you should be accountable to yourself, but then when you're accountable to everyone, like you're not hiding everything. You're like, man, I'm struggling. Like you can't ignore it, because now the world knows you're struggling. So you're like, I gotta buckle down, I gotta figure it out. And like Bryce and I had several long talks over September, because we were just struggling. Like, what are we doing wrong, dude? Like, how do we get this back on track? And because of that, like that pressure, it definitely helped us get there. And mentally, like to answer your question, it is tough. But like Bryce and I, like we're very like charismatic people. We talk a lot. We're like, I'm more than willing to share my journey, especially because like coming up, watching just all the traders, and specifically like obviously you learn from people who share their journey. There's a lot of people who don't. So just knowing the struggle I went through and the Beyond the PDT podcast, that was huge in Bryce's journey, my journey, because finally like it opened the door on like what these traders are doing, what their mindsets are. And I'll just never forget that. And that like was a turning point in my career. So, you know, while I'm doing well trading, like I also just like want to give it back, because like I remember what it was like being in those people's shoes and just like struggling. So that's why we're just open books here.
You brought up you and Bryce have these conversations when you're struggling. What do we need to do? Can you talk about how important it is to have someone to kind of like bounce ideas off, or when you're going through periods? That's not someone who's like just a friend, but more importantly, someone who trades. Yeah,
crazy important. Trading is lonely for vast majority of people. And like, I'm sure like everyone was lonely during COVID. You were at home behind your screens, but like trading, that's what you do all the time as traders. You're just sitting behind a computer. Very rarely do you talk to someone unless you can find like that group, that community. And like, thankfully, Bryce and I were roommates in college at the time when we really got into trading. And because of that, like we were able to grow together, and like a lot of things that we did, like Beyond the PDT podcast, that turning point, I don't think I would have started alone. I don't think Bryce would have started alone, but together, like we had enough courage to like go out there and try to do it. And it was instrumental. It's huge. It's a good support system, but then there's like the competitive side too. And like Bryce and I, like we've gotten over that money hurdle. At least I have, I think Bryce can agree over here. But like now it's just like competitive of like, man, like you nailed that trade. I didn't nail that trade. Are you kidding me? Like that's a trade I should have been in. Like, and like that's where we're competitive now, and it drives us. And like for a long time, like over the summer, I was like, oh, I'm gonna take it slow. And then that's like when Bryce like really started popping off, and I think he had like 6-figure months like back to back. And I was like, what are you doing? Like, how are you doing this? And then we talked about it a lot. We figured it out, and I ended up having a really good August because of that. My July was like average. Like it was summer. I was like taking it a little slow, but like Bryce popped off in July, and I like got competitive. And then because of that competitiveness, I had a good August.
Would you say you guys trade very similar or different?
Definitely different, but it's funny because my brother's getting into trading now, and he asked us about this because he comes to the office with us. Like when Bryce and I agree on a trade, it's usually a very good trade. Bryce will throw out a lot of ideas that I don't like. I throw out stuff like OTC stocks. Bryce does not like OTC stocks. So like we have similar styles, and we know each other's styles now too. So like I can be like, this is a Bryce trade. Like Bryce, you should look at this trade. I'm never gonna take this, but like you'll probably like it. And like we do that a lot too. No, it's just a great dynamic.
I love that you just said that, because literally I was trying to get to that, and you were like, you know, we can see each other's setups, but you said, I was like, hey Bryce, this is more your setup. I'm not gonna take that trade.
Right. Like
that right there, like people need to hear that, right?
Totally. Well, the trading, I got this from Matt as a lot. When he was on like Chat with Traders and stuff, like the whole personality thing. And like, there's just like Bryce and I have different personalities at the end of the day. And like the way he trades and his patience level and all that is very different than like my patience level. So like a trade he likes, like I'm gonna be like, it's just not for me. But like, here's an opportunity. Like I'll give it to you on a silver platter. Like no problem at all. It's just, I'm not gonna take it. Someone might as well take it. So
you said your brother's starting to trade now too, right? And I heard you say on your show a while back, I was like, oh, that's so cool. So helping your brother learn this, are you noticing that, is he becoming a replica of you guys, or in between you guys, or is he completely just different? But just like, how are you trying to coach someone who's your brother, who's sitting with you? You know what I'm saying? Like,
he's replicating a lot of like what we're doing for sure. He was like totally brand new, super begin. Like, so he's only 19. He's not in college right now, but he's starting in January, so he's gonna be a freshman. And I was like, dude, like you're ahead of the curve, dude. You're ahead of most people. You're doing the right things. You've got the connections, and I do think you asked about it earlier, but I think connections is huge, right? That's the difference. In anything, but trading, we're talking about trading like very specifically. It's who you know. And if you don't know anyone, like go out there, put yourself out there on Twitter, put yourself out there in some of these chat rooms, just like network and get to know people. And that's really how you're going to learn. And it's definitely helping him a lot. Like he's been living with me actually for like the last like 6 weeks now. And he's going to stay till just like a week or two after Thanksgiving, in his like little gap semester sort of thing. And like 6 weeks ago, he asked like the crazy newbie questions of like, like, I don't even know what stocks to look at. Like, how do you know? And like, we went through that, and now he's like bringing up stocks, and he's like, hey, like, I think this is like a breakout, and he's like speaking the terms. I'm like, dude, you're learning this way faster than I learned it. Like, we've been here 6 weeks. You know, he's making some winning trades. It's, you know, really small account. I think his account's like $1,000 that he's just have. He's 19. Like,
right, you're learning too.
I'm like, dude, you got 4 years to figure this out. Save up some money. Like, you're gonna come out of college and be in a really good spot if you can figure it out. You got the time. You got the network. You're doing the right things.
Yep.
So.
What would you say has been the hardest thing for you to explain to your brother in terms of like, is there like, maybe is it setups? Is it mindset? Like, you know, what do you think it is?
It's funny because like we'll come home after the trading day and like talk about it. And I think there's been 2 hurdles. One is like, he's like, sometimes you look at a stock and you say it's garbage, you don't like it. And he's like, but then like the same stock, or like not the same stock, but like a chart that looks to him the same, he's like, and you're like, oh, that's really good. He's like, to me, they're the same. Like, I don't understand. So then like breaking down that checklist was huge. And like, it's like stuff that like, for me is like second nature at this point. Cause I've been doing this, like, I don't even know, going on 5 years, not to date myself here.
Dude, you're young, get out of
here. but like, to me, it's just like second nature. Like I look at a chart and I just like blow through all the criteria. I don't even think about it. It's like subconscious now, but like breaking that checklist out of like, you know, everything I do for how I trade, you start at the daily chart. Like, does the daily chart make sense? And like right off the bat, if the daily chart is garbage, I'm not even gonna look at the rest. Like, it doesn't matter. So breaking that checklist down for him was huge. And the other one was kind of a similar factor of like, when you're in a trade, like sometimes you're like, oh, I gotta get out. And he's like, I don't understand why. Like, because a lot of times he like literally sits like in between Bryce and I, and he is under PDT, he can't trade much, but he's there listening to us. He's like, why are you like getting out of this trade? So then like we have discussions on like level 2 or big sellers are like, well, this trade, the thesis was it should have done this. And even though technically like it didn't fail and hit my risk, it didn't do what I was expecting it to do. So because of that, like I'm getting out of the trade.
How do you keep that balance of being able to say like, it should have done this and then did what I expected to do, and be okay with just taking it off for like a small gain or something, or even just break even or whatever it may be.
Right.
And then overall, the structure of the trade was still there and it continues and it never hit your original risk plan.
Right. So like, you know, as you grow as a trader, I'm very much like I'd say 100% of the time in the boat of if it doesn't do what I expect it's going to do, I'm just getting out. Like small gain, small loss, break even, doesn't matter. I'm just going to get out of the trade. When I was first starting though, like I was total opposite boat. Like I'm waiting till my risk. And like we've all been in those trades. Like I'm a breakout trader for the most part, where you buy the breakout and you see it fail the breakout. And then you're just sitting there for like an hour and you're like, I'm just like, why am I waiting for this to just hit my risk? Like I know it's not working at this point. And now there's the flip side of that. It's going to be the argument like, oh, what happens if it recovers? Well, that's why, like, as you grow as a trader, you get above PDT, like, I will rebuy, like, no questions. Like, I have that mental ability, and you develop it over time, just as you trade enough, where, like, you know, it didn't do what I wanted this time. Maybe you were too early, and, like, it needed another breakout attempt. So I'm like, all right, it failed this time, cut it, break even, small loss, small gain, whatever. And then, like, 30 minutes later, it sets up again. No problem. For me, it's totally new trade. I'll just rebuy it and do the same thing over again. And you do miss trades. I do miss them. Sometimes you're like, oh, like, come on. But like at that, like for me, I would rather like if it's not going to do what I want, like I just don't want to be in it. Because then it's an unfamiliar territory for me.
So what about when it comes to you miss a trade, right? And then like, let's say you get in a trade, you get out because maybe it didn't do what you wanted, right? And then it resets up. So would you sit there and just wait for, let's say there's a lot of moving objects, right? Will you sit there and just stare at your one ticker if it's the one that you've been waiting for, right? And maybe you didn't do what you wanted. Are you quick to write it off, or are you there to stay and just watch it and wait for it to reset up? Like any advice on that? Because some people like myself, I would just walk away and I'll miss the move a lot sometimes. Because I'll be like, I'm gonna go to the gym, I missed the move, or it didn't do what I wanted, I'm out of here. Like, is there a balance there? Or how do you make a decision?
There's a balance. There's kind of like a cutoff for me. I'd say like 11 Eastern, basically. And I will miss trades if like they come back midday and rip. And like that's probably the most common time I miss a trade. But in the morning, like if I'm looking to trade a breakout in the morning, like I'll take like 3-4 stabs at it. And if like it's just really choppy for a little bit, struggling in an area, like maybe break even, maybe down a little bit, and that's fine. And then like on that 5th time, like I'm willing to buy it again. Like, it's fine as long as it's there and like the setup stays the same and it's not like, you know, something weird comes in, like clearly $7, like there's some algo or just a massive seller. Like, as long as the thesis stays the same, I'll keep trying it. Like, I have no problem like trying it again until then. But once midday comes, like, you hear it all the time, midday's tough. And I'm here to tell you, I struggle midday
comes back or goes back. It's like, it's crazy.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
I struggle midday too. Like, midday's just a tough time to trade.
It really is. Now, when you can take multiple shots, sizing has to be an art to that, right? It has to be. Because I mean, like, if you take full size every shot and just take, you know, take your loss, and it doesn't matter if you're right. So how do you, any advice on how to do that and be okay? Like, I see my setup, Matt, and I know it's gonna work today, maybe, I don't know when, but it's starting to show structure. It's showing me a breakout. I'm gonna take a piece, but I take full size, take a small loss, and then I'm like, I don't wanna take another full loss.
Right.
So how do you balance and how do you kind of play with that?
Yeah, that's tough. And like, there's like the ranking scale of like A+ setup, B, C, and this is something I do like subconsciously as well to this day. Like, if I'm like, oh, this is A+ breakout, like, I'm gonna take that shot, and like, I'll probably give that one more time just because for whatever reason I've determined that's an A+ setup. I did trade actually last week when I was trading live. I think it was OCGN, and I was like, all right, this one's like a little riskier. Like, I see it starting to set up. I took like 20% of my normal size, like a fifth of my normal size. And I was like, look, like over a high day, like I'll add my full size back on. But like for now, like I'm just in it. I got to understand how it's trading, got like get like a little feel of it. And then sure enough, like I see Kyle Williams be like, I'm short OCGN. I'm like, oh, come on. Like, but anyways, I kept,
man.
Thanks, bro. And then, so I see the trade and I'm in it just like 500 shares. I'm like it's low. Like if it, at that point, low day was like my risk. I was just small size. I was like, if it goes to low day, like for me, I'll take like a couple $100 loss. That's like relatively small for the size I use. And like over high day, I'll add. There'll probably be a squeeze and it'll be a good winner. So I took like a couple $100 loss there, and then I flipped it. And there was some other trade I had, and I saw it, and I was like, oh, like I can't believe I missed this one. This is like your solid B+, maybe A- setup. And instead of taking that small size starter, like I was confident in being like, all right, we can take like reasonable size on this. And then I let it run and locked in like a couple thousand on the trade, and that was a nice green morning for me. But sizing is huge, and like I'm that trader, like I'll have 15, 20 buys if a trade's working. I'll just keep adding as long as it stays, and then I'll have those 15, 20 sells on the way up too, is like locking in the gains as we go. So,
but sizing, like, because some people, I'm sure you get this message. I'm sure you get this message, or at least this question. The question of like, do I full size in at my level, or do I go in a third and then maybe size in when it works? And then, well, Matt, I try to size in at my level and then I always take a full loss. Or Matt, I take a half size or a quarter and then it goes and I never have an opportunity to add. Like, how do you battle that? And because it seems like you've got that down.
No, you do battle it. So there's plenty of trades that like sometimes they just move quicker than you're expecting. You're like, oh, this breakout, like I'm not comfortable. Maybe the risk is a little wider. You're like, I'm not comfortable taking full size because, you know, I just don't want to take a full size loss here. It's too big. I can't get the share size I want. So I'll go in with that smaller size. So then I have a piece of it. So if it does work on that first breakout attempt, I can be like, all right, that's fine. Like I have a piece of it. It's just a smaller trade. I didn't get my full size, but like the risk reward profile is still there. Like I maintained it, but I started drawing on like these charts all the time. Like,
I've seen that. I love that. I saw you do that.
Like this is exactly how I size in. If it goes up to the breakout level and it fails, like I actually like that because then it's gonna dip,
consolidate,
and it consolidate. If we have a higher low, like okay, now we're talking. Now I can get some bigger size. Like I'm comfortable risking it. It's building all this support, and that's kind of like my approach to getting in there. So a lot of the times, like when it actually does break out, like that for me is like I'm already in like 75% or something because it started consolidating, building that support, and then I'll like hit the final bullet and get in full size.
Would you say that it's almost like, I have to pull this side of the argument. Would you say like, what's the point of going in a fifth or a sixth size or small, even if the risk reward's there and it just rockets and you just sell it? And so like, rather than just wait for the best like optimal, you know,
Yeah.
like setup for you. And
Right.
like, it's not there yet, but it will get there maybe I won't.
Yeah.
And then just hitting it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because those little wins and little losses could sometimes just be, at the end of the day, it's not going to move the needle for your account, right? What moves the needle are those big trades, those ones that you're confident in.
Totally.
Can you explain why you'll take them anyway?
Yeah, I don't think I've had a single big trade that didn't start in that way, right?
Okay, yeah.
Because you have to get in the stock, and it's almost like you put some money in it, so like you feel like how it's trading, like some money's on the line, like you take it more seriously because you're invested at that point. You're not just watching it, and you will miss some that just like rocket on you, anyways. But more times than not, the way I trade, like the big moves, like don't just rocket, like they build up, they build all that anticipation, and when the breakout happens, like it is big. So that's like,
I love that you said that, because I think a lot of people need to hear that, because they may be just one side or the other, or they'll be like, oh man, like, because it happens with, like you said, you'll get in small, and maybe it does rocket, and you just can't get full size.
Right.
But I'm assuming, like, if you do get in, and you're right, there's a feel, you start to be more serious about it.
You're invested, like.
Absolutely. And so now, you wait, I'm assuming like you'll wait for it to build some type of structure again, and then you're like, oh, I can add more size, and let it start working. And you mentioned multiple times, and you did this, you were like, checklist, I got a checklist. Could you explain what you mean? Can you mention one thing of that list, I'm assuming, and it's like, I always look at the daily chart. Like, what do you mean by checklist? And can you explain what that is, and maybe how others may need something like that?
Yeah, checklist is huge, and your checklist, our checklist, they're going to be different because it depends on your strategies. And I've got like a couple core strategies, and they're basic checklists. So like a breakout checklist, like look at the daily chart. Is it a breakout? Is it a breakout? Right?
Or is it approaching?
Is it approaching a breakout? Could it be a breakout? Like, you know, like, but even then, like, what type of breakout is it? Is it like, did it run and then it's consolidated very nicely over the course of 5 days? Like, that's a good breakout. Like, it's very different than like a stock that spiked one day, maybe went sideways a day, and now it's on the third day. Like, yeah, it might break out, but that's a different level of breakout for me, right?
In terms of caliber.
In terms of caliber, exactly. And that's like where the ABC comes in, right? So like, you know, ideal, like cream of the crop breakout with like spike, you get anywhere from like 3 to 5 days of consolidation. Ideally, you get some news in there, right? Like a good catalyst, not just some crap thing. Like, you know,
tighter.
Gets tighter. More times than not, those best catalysts too, like just for an example, or like legitimate news, like changing, like life-changing news for that company. They partnered with a major company, you know, think Walmart, Amazon. Like if those companies actually have a partnership with
Tesla bought, or Tesla invested in some rental car company, or bought all the Teslas or something like that. Who was that recently?
What was that ticker? I did see that.
It doesn't matter the ticker, but that happened recently. You know what I'm saying? That's
like,
good news.
That's the type of news. That's like good news, not just like, I don't know, like it doesn't even matter. Just the average news you see out there, right?
Not repeating old stuff.
Not repeating old stuff. It's not just like some random pop and drop news. You know, typically the biotechs, it's very rare like you get a real biotech breakout because it's like phase 3 is okay.
And it just
like
gaps
phase
up 100%.
1, 2, gaps up 100% and then just fades all day. Like it's just very rare you see breakout. What was the ticker? Man, I can't remember it, but they like partnered with Pfizer. That was like a really good breakout. This was like a couple months ago, and it ran up to like $1 and then consolidated for, this one was a little longer, it was like 7 or 10 days. And then it broke out and ended up going to like 5 over the course of the next week. Like that type of news. So it starts at the daily chart, you get the big picture, you build all that, and then it goes intraday. Like you gotta wait for the right time. But when the intraday matches the daily, like that's when like it's my strike zone.
Do you see yourself as anticipating your timing or confirmation?
I'll tend to anticipate more times than not. Like, yeah, so going back to that ideal scenario, by the time we've hit like day 4, day 5, I'm like, look, like if this starts moving, like I'm gonna take a stab at it because I know I can risk like that consolidation from the last 3 or 4 days. Like I'll take that stab at it. And then if I don't get full size or whatever, like I'll add in the confirmation period. Or sometimes, like for me, it's multiple trades over the course of the thing. Sometimes there's that initial breakout and I'll sell into it, and then you get this weird midday pullback and it consolidates, and then you get the afternoon breakout. And to me, that's a totally separate trade, and I'll trade that secondary one because, like, again, most of the time, like at least right now, I rarely swing breakouts. So like a lot of times they're broken up into multiple trades, and like a day 2 of a breakout, like I'll trade differently. Like I would love to dip by like a day 2 breakout, like it gaps up slightly, dips back to that green red level. like that's an awesome trade for me that I'll do every single time it comes up.
What do you think people struggle with? Because when it comes, I know you like breakouts.
Yeah.
What do you think people struggle with the most with breakouts? Because you teach this a lot, right? And
Yeah.
you get a lot of questions, I'm sure, about
Yeah.
like, well, Matt, I didn't know that was, I see this and you see a breakout.
Yeah. I try to explain it this way, like how, like if you just Google like how to trade a breakout, like there's probably gonna be some very basic video out there that's like, oh, the dollar's the high, you buy it at $1, and then it goes to like $1.30 or something, like.
And it works.
And, and it works. And like theoretically, like, okay, that is a breakout. But you better believe, like, if the breakout's at $1, like in that ideal scenario, like I'm buying like 85, 90 cents, like in anticipation of that breakout. And I'm building in a lot lower. So by the time those people who just have a very basic understanding, like buying there, it goes up to like $1.05, $1.10. Like I'm selling into them because I'm long from 85, 90 cents. Like I get in early because I know how not only the breakout like structure works, but then like also how like the mentality of it in those traders.
Because you were there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We were buying the breakout.
That's where I started. Exactly. So like I'm selling to all those new people who hopefully those new people will learn. Like that's really not the way to do it, because like I did that so many times, and it's a lot of times it's a great feeling. You buy at $1, you get that $1.05, $1.10, and then it pulls back to like 95 cents. You're like, what just happened? I'm down on it. Meanwhile, like I'm long from 90 cents and I probably sold some into that spike, and now I'm either all out or I'm looking to buy again. Like that's my approach.
People are going to hear you say this. They're going to hear you say, at the beginning, I like to buy breakouts. That's the kind of trader I am. And then they're going to hear you say just now that you want to maybe buy before the breakout. So can you explain, are you just, this looks like, I don't want people to hear that and be like, all these charts look like they're going to break out, so I'm going to start buying before they break out. Can you explain the importance of like what you look for before you even like, no, you're not saying, unless you are, just anything that looks like it's breaking out, I'm buying. You know, like, you know what I'm saying?
I'm not. And I preach this all the time. It's incredibly important to keep just a list. It doesn't need to be a detailed watch list, but just a list of stocks that run. 50% runners, 100% runners, just anything that's running, especially if it's running on news, because what it does the next like 2, 3, 4 days is going to be huge. Maybe it just gets clobbered. All right, well, maybe I'll look for a bounce trade on it. That's totally separate discussion. Otherwise, like if it's a breakout trade, like I want to know about it. So day one runners, I'm just going to throw on a list, and like every morning or every night or whenever I build my watch list, I'll just run through all the charts and I'll be like, all right, out of the 100 stocks I have on here, there's like 5 that like kind of are setting up for a breakout. So typically what that would look like is, you know, it pulls back, right? The general metric I tell people, because a lot of people like specific numbers, and like for me, it's like kind of an art, but like the general like rule of thumb is if whatever it spiked, it holds at least half that spike, right? So that's generally what I'm looking at. So typically you'll get that big run and then like 1 or 2 days of hard pullback. If it holds at least 50% of that spike, I'm interested. I'll keep watching it. Like what's it gonna do the next couple of days? Might keep getting crushed and okay, it's out of the picture at this point. Otherwise, like you'll see it stabilize for like a day or two, and then the trend will start to increase. And I guarantee, you haven't had Dom, Maestro Mateo on the show.
I haven't.
But I learned a ton from that guy. I'll shout out to him.
Yeah,
he was
Dom.
really good. He has this term called Intra-daily, right? Which is like a 15-day, 15-minute chart or something. So that way you see the daily, but like intra-daily, right? And that's like a great time frame I love to look at, because you'll see the spike, you'll see the pullback, and you'll see it stabilize. And then I guarantee you, if you look at that, people are going to be like, oh, the breakout level's again $1. But like I said, I'm buying at 90 cents. It's because like 90 cents was actually more significant on that chart than that $1. So I'll buy at that breakout level.
The breakout within the breakout.
Within the breakout.
Which I love.
Which you can like, now I know that was a little vague, but more important level, because like maybe it ran to $1, but maybe that was just like a quick like parabolic spike to $1. Well, if it only traded there a minute or two, like it's only so important. Where meanwhile, like if you go back and look at that initial spike day, if it touched 90 cents like 5 times and it couldn't break above it, or maybe went down to 90 cents and held that 90 cent level, like to me, that is the breakout.
Nice.
So that's huge. So good question, because we're getting
rewind this part, because he just went deep into something that a lot of you guys probably haven't heard, and you need to rewind that. and then send him a Venmo because that was good information. Like no joke. I didn't think you would go that deep, and I'm glad you did.
Nah,
so I
dude,
appreciate it, man.
That was your question. Like you just kept opening it up, and I was like, wow, like
it's crazy.
But that's exactly how I approach trades, and those. You know, those aren't all my trades, but those are my best trades. Like right there, my biggest winners are always a setup like that.
Yep, and it's interesting. And you said this a couple of times that, you know, you've been doing it for so long that you don't think about the list, like the check. It's just second nature. Right. And you get that feeling like that's your best trade.
Originally, I had a list.
Right.
I had that post-it note sent on my monitor. Like I was there.
Yep.
But again, it's repetition. It's anything. You just do it enough times. I've seen, I don't even know, thousands of breakouts now between my own trading and like trading tickers and just like other educational platforms out there.
Yep.
That I've seen so many. Like I know at this point, like what has a chance of breaking out, what's a good breakout, and like maybe we're like, all right, like tomorrow's the day. Like it should break out tomorrow. Like that's the day I need to be watching it. Or like that list of runners, I'm like, all right, like, you know, this one just had its pullback day. Like I'll look again tomorrow, but it's probably like 2 or 3 days away from a possible breakout. And that just comes from experience and just seeing it so many times.
That's awesome. Well, look, Matt, before we wrap this up, I got one last question for you.
Hit me.
And then I want you to tell everyone where they can get more information from you.
Absolutely.
But that is, what now? And if there is one, I hope there is. But if there's not, it's all good. Because then they'll make this question worthless.
Okay.
So it's like, give me something.
No pressure.
But I want to know, is there anything that you're really focused on to really improve on in your own trading?
Yeah, absolutely. No question. So we didn't discuss it, but like I still have a job, right?
Yeah.
And it's super flexible, great company. I work at Stocks Trade, right? So like they understand and they're appreciative. Like I trade, I work, like it's awesome. But and I see a lot of traders move into this evolution of just swing trading, right? And to me, it should be an ezy jump because most swing traders are breakout traders for the most part. It's simple and it's just longer term. And I'm just like, I'm trying. I'm just not there at like a patient level. So like, I'm just not there. Like if it's in the same account and like I see it working, I'm like, oh, it's working. Like, and then like I'm takes them off, and I'm like, I just ruined the trade. Like, are you kidding me? So for me, like that's the next step. Like I don't think I'll ever stop day trading, but Bryce and I have deep conversations about this all the time. Like as a day trader, still like your how much money you make is tied to like how much effort you put in, right? Because you have to be there every day. You have to be there trading. Where swing trading, like there's still effort, but it's a lot more on the passive side. Like you're like, I buy it. I'm just letting it do its thing. Like you don't have to be there monitoring it. You trust the setup. You trust your position size.
Put your stops in. Put your profit target alerts, and then you can go have fun with Bryce. Go to the gym and
and then you're detached from putting so much time and effort like into trading, and your money is then like working for you, which is the dream for everybody. So,
dude, I love what you said at the end. That's working for you because that's literally what it's doing. And I've been battling this. We'll talk. Well, what I've been battling is like, should I just focus only on swing trading? Because I've been doing really well swinging, and I've done well for as long as I can remember swinging. And but I don't. It's not sexy. Let me just be honest. It's just like I'll be in a swing and I have like 3 days tops, like minimum. I'll be in 3 days, and I'm like, but day trading, you're there every day. But when you just said just now. And I know it's common sense. Like everyone knows, like you want money to work for you, but then when you find trading, you think at first like this can get me out of my job. Or
but then you think your money's working for you.
Right, but you're still.
But it's still very connected to your time and your effort. Totally.
Yep. Thank you for saying that, man.
Absolutely.
Well, look, man, where can people learn more information about you? Let them know right now.
Yeah. Best place, Twitter. It's a Mono, _trader. Definitely on Stocks Trade YouTube. Check it out. Great platform. I do a lot with Stocks Trade. Those are the best two. I'm also on Profitly. You can just see that in the Twitter. I get a lot of messages there, and I try to answer as many as possible.
Awesome. So. Well, thanks so much, Matt, man. Hey, I appreciate you being here, brother. Take care.
Thanks for having me.